Okay. Cool. All right. So first item on the agenda, Mimir 2.1 is coming out real soon. I know, Johanna, you're shepherding that. Is there anything you wanted to say about that? Or?
Not really. Nothing unexpected. It's getting cut today, final release. So the RC is available for use if you're interested. But by end of day today, for me, because it's morning for me, it will be, the final release will be cut.
Cool. We have a list of top new features in the document. So these are an ARM image for Mimir, particularly multi-arch Docker images. There's a new mode for the ruler that allows you to use the full capabilities of Mimir query sharding and all of that. So it should improve performance of rule evaluation. There's Pertinent custom trackers. I'm not super familiar with that feature. Does anyone have anything they wanted to say about that one?
Yeah, in Mimir 2.0, we introduced what we call the custom trackers for active series. Basically, you can specify a list of label matches to track active series only matching the specific label matches. For example, let's say you want to track the number of active series by, I don't know, the job label. You can define a custom tracker specifying basically the label matcher job. In Mimir 2.1, so okay, in 2.0, the configuration was just global. So you can just configure it for the entire Mimir cluster and applies to all the tenants. In Mimir 2.1, you can configure these custom trackers on a per tenant basis.
Cool. Sounds nice. Sounds like a good way to track cardinality within a tenant, not just across tenants, right? Cool.
Yeah, exactly. That's the idea.
And they are also a runtime configuration now, so you can change them without restarting gestures.
Nice. Cool. And then the last one we have listed on here is there was an effort to reduce the cardinality of the metrics generated by Mimir itself. I think, Marco, you worked on that one, right?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, exactly. So typically the number of exposed metrics by a Mimir cluster is not that high, but we have many metrics which are per tenant. So if you have many tenants in your cluster, like thousands of tenants, for example, this could cause, metrics explosion among all the metrics exported by a Mimir cluster. We did the work to try to reduce them. The biggest impact is in the metrics exposed by the Hellet manager, which for clusters with a high number of tenants, we have seen a reduction of the exported series by about 70%. And for the other Mimir components, about a reduction of about 10%.
Cool. And it looks like we're planning to release a stable version later today. So that'll be today, US time, I'm assuming. Cool. All right. Anything else about Mimir 2.1? Cool. There's a few other kind of major efforts underway. So one is the new Backfill API. I'm not sure if anyone working on that is on the call here today, but this one is about being able to backfill metrics data into Mimir. So say you have TSDB blocks from some other system, or you're migrating, for example, from an on-prem Mimir to Grafana Cloud, that sort of thing. being able to backfill those metrics into the database. And Marco, you had a note here. Yeah, about the runtime config file. Yeah, high-level runtime config allows you to configure things at runtime rather than needing to restart processes to configure them. So some of the features we were talking about earlier, the Pertinent custom trackers is one of those that you can configure without restarting anything. Pretty neat. Oh yeah, anything else about the Backfill API? Cool. All right, there's another one in process, which is adding a thread pool to the store gateway. So this one is trying to address some issues we've seen with IMMAP page faults going on in store gateways, causing store gateways to basically become unresponsive. So we're experimenting with adding a thread pool to basically isolate those page faults to a known number of threads so that they can't block all the Go routines attempting to serve requests. So there's more details in that issue, but it's a thing that's been going on for a few weeks now, testing in our production environments. I think we've seen a little bit of improvement. I'm not sure. Does anyone have like knowledge of what the expected changes are in terms of performance or whatever, availability? As far as I know, like, yeah, go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, I think Nick and Steve did the testing, but they're not in this call. Yeah, I personally don't know the latest news on the test. As far as I know, we're still testing it.
Cool.
I think it didn't. It's not yet baked. Like they've done a couple of implementations and tested them, but the next step is to change the implementation because the testing was not that positive, I think.
Or even with the second implementation.
Maybe I'm a little bit out of date, but that's my sense of where we are.
Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know. I remember I heard Steve and Nick that were going to do the test either yesterday or the day before. Yeah, but I haven't read it. I haven't got any news since then. So you heard it over the past 2 days, Brian?
Yeah. Well, yeah, like 2 days ago, I was conversing with Steve. Anyway, I guess the idea is we carry on working on it until it's better.
Yeah.
That's usually the plan.
Definitely. Yeah, the other option we have, which I think Steve is experimenting on, is removing the memory map usage at all from the store gateway, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of linked, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah. What I mean is yet another option. So I think they were testing the thread pool, but the other option still have to test is just stop using mmap.
Cool. Yeah, I think what I remember is basically they were finding that yes, they were able to prevent the store gateway from completely locking up, but it didn't necessarily improve like overall query evaluation, like because the store gateways ended up slower as a result of thread pool, something like that. So I'm sure they'll keep working on it. And you're right, we have a backup plan. Cool. The next item is this errors catalog, which this is about trying to make it a little bit easier to understand the various different kinds of errors that come out of Mimir and having a central place to, kind of understand how you can fix those things. There's a few different issues linked here. I don't know. I think, Marco, there's another one that you worked on, if you want to say anything else about that.
I linked a couple of PRs, but yeah, it's exactly what you meant. The idea is, Mimir, like any other system, could return errors, either in the API response or they get logged, typically both. We want to have a unique ID for the most common errors, like for example, when you hit a limit, or when you run a query which is, forbidden for some reason because of the configurable, because of some limits configured. And we want you to be able to Google the error ID and just get a runbook explaining what does it mean and how to resolve it. For example, if you hit a limit, we give you suggestions on, first of all, which is the configuration option controlling that limit, or if there are other options to solve it without increasing the limit. That's basically the idea. It's a work we just started, and I plan to have it done for the next Mimir release.
Cool. All right. So last item on the agenda is before we go to open Q&A is the Hump Chart. So there's a bunch of work going on in the coming weeks and months on the Hump Chart across a lot of different areas, but we tried to highlight a few things here. So basically, the first thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to move the Hump Chart from the Grafana Helm Charts Git repo into the Mimir Git repo itself. We think this will allow us to make sure that we're kind of keeping the Helm Chart up to date, on every PR effectively, keep making it as first-class citizen as everything else, the documentation, the JSON deployments, all that kind of stuff. We're going to keep them as like one unit. The Helm Chart repository itself will be unchanged. So the plan is for the actual installation experience to be the same. Shouldn't be any breaking change there as far as the move. But yeah, that'll be the first thing. And then after that, we're kind of doing a lot of thinking about the release process, how we can test the chart, just generally trying to make sure that as we accept both internal and community contributions to the chart, we can be more confident that we're not going to break anything, understand how it impacts things like functionality and performance over time, all that. So we, as part of that new release process, we're thinking of introducing a Mimir distributed beta chart, which will basically be like any kind of bleeding edge features that we need to release quickly or things that are experimental. We're not sure how they're going to work yet, will be a part of that beta chart. That'll give users a chance to install them quickly and give feedback without us needing to commit to long-term support in Mimir Distributed, which is used not only by open source users, but also by our enterprise customers. So we have a little bit higher bar of kind of long-term sustainability in the Mimir Distributed chart versus the Mimir Distributed beta chart, which we will be able to make a little bit more kind of breaking changes and move more quickly as we're learning things. And then there's also beyond that, so that's kind of all just like the infrastructure work, I would call it, for the Hump Chart, to make sure that it is something that we can sustain and provide long-term. On top of all of that kind of like foundation, we want to make sure that the Helm Chart is the best way to install Mimir. So that means all of the high performance features like, for example, query results cache, query sharding, multi-zone ingestion, all of that kind of stuff needs to be a part of the Helm Chart. So the plan is kind of once we have that foundation of testability and a release process, we can start to really quickly add those sorts of features, make the Helm Chart as capable as any other way of deploying Mimir. And then the only last thing that I haven't mentioned is OpenShift support. So this is a thing that several different users have asked for and enterprise customers. And so that's one of those things that's like kind of a bigger change. And so this is part of what inspired us to think of maybe we need a beta chart, because it's difficult to test like the scale of change required to support something like OpenShift in the main chart with the release process we have now, because we're releasing on every commit and we don't want to break things and we know we're going to need to experiment a bit. So that's a lot. I like said a lot of things about the Hump Chart, but I guess like the high level is just we are investing. Myself, Creo, we're both on the call, and we're both like this is our full-time thing for the next little bit is working on the Hump Chart. So Creo, I don't know if you want to add anything to what I said.
No, that was spot on. I think, yeah, as Patrick mentioned, there are more things in the pipeline. We've seen, a large number of requests in forms of issues in the Helm charts repo and from customers as well. We just wanted to highlight a couple of things. But yeah, I think the main message is that we really want to make the Helm charts a first-class citizen and speed up the development, which is a bit could be perceived as a bit sluggish at the moment because we need a kind of stability, but in the same time we are having a lot of requests that introduce breaking changes. So yeah, but good summary. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, so I think that's it for our agenda. If anyone has anything else about the Helm chart they wanted to say, or anything else in the agenda, speak now. I will otherwise go ahead and open it up for any open discussion or Q&A.
I see a few people outside Grafana Labs. So if you want to introduce yourself, if you want to share your experience, like if you ever tried Mimir, if you're just curious or you tested or you're already running it and you want to share your experience, we would be very happy to hear about it.
Hey folks, thanks Marco. Hey folks, my name is Giri. I work with this startup called Crew Foundry based out of Bangalore. We were about to work on setting up a metric stack when, like, literally I think the day that I joined, I saw that Mimir got open source. Thank you so much for doing that. It's been like I've spent the last couple of months trying to just wrap my head around it, and it's been great so far. We're looking to take it into production over the next couple of days. We struggle with different parts here and there, but it's mostly because just trying to run it in as minimal configuration as possible. I saw that Loki has a simple Helm chart. It would be great if we could maybe have one of those as well. I tried setting up something with essentially running the local setup on and create a Helm chart out of it, but it didn't really work out the way I was expecting it. And I see that I think the alert manager config, alert manager can actually be disabled now with the fix that's coming up in in 2.1. I think in our current setup probably don't need alert manager as part of Mimir itself. So that might make sense for us to set up. But overall, loving the experience so far. Thanks again for doing this. One thing I would like to add to the Mimir metrics themselves, I'm still trying to work out how I really make the most use of them. Like for example, currently the Mimir dashboards, like setting up a Mimir data source on Grafana itself requires that I mention a tenant ID, right? Is there an admin view that I can have of all the tenants as such without probably doing something too funky?
So the dashboards and the alert we publish allow you to monitor the Mimir cluster overall. Not just specific tenants. We also have a couple of dashboards which are called the Tenant dashboard and Top Tenants dashboard. I guess you already know them. Which gives you some insights on per tenant usage. So typically when it comes to Mimir itself, what you want to monitor is the entire health of the system. So that's why most of our dashboards don't allow you to drill down into per tenant metrics, except for the couple of dashboards I just mentioned. If what you want to do is querying multiple tenant metrics, so you don't want to monitor Mimir itself, but you want to query the metrics which are written to Mimir.
Yeah.
And instead of querying just one single tenant, you want to query multiple tenants. We support a feature which is called Query Federation. It's disabled by default. Okay. But if you enable it, you can specify all the tenants for which you want to query the metrics in a HTTP header.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm trying to just approach it from the perspective that, say, in case a tenant ends up essentially trying to blow up the number of labels that they're passing something that's going to create very high cardinality. I just noticed that there was a function for, I think, meters in one of the release notes just now. Maybe that is something that can actually help as well. I'll check out that, and I've been having some trouble setting up the metrics dashboard specifically for Mimir itself. I think the default dashboards expect the 4 or 5 requirements. I'm just trying to figure out if maybe, like, when I tried to run them, I got some errors. I'm still trying to work out if maybe those flags are not, maybe those labels are not passed by default or something. Maybe some sort of default configuration for Prometheus or something that essentially provides, hey, you know what, these are the labels that will essentially help Mimir run the way that you're expecting. That would also help. Again,
Okay.
I'm really sorry if this comes across as like a laundry list of features. Sorry.
No, that's a great feedback. I love this discussion. So the dashboards and the alert make some assumptions on some labels each of your metric has in the system. Like, for example, we require a label which is called cluster, which identifies the Kubernetes cluster where it's running, and then namespace, which is the Kubernetes namespace. Job label is another one that we require. So if these label names don't fit your use case, then what you can do is to change the configuration in the sources. Dashboards and alerts are defined as JSON, which is like a language.
Yeah.
And then you can use a makefile target, which is build mixin to rebuild the dashboard and the alerts. Maybe Cryo want to mention something about using our dashboards with the Hump Chart, which is something they're working on.
Yeah, I was wondering if I didn't catch it. Did you say you used the Helm chart to install?
Yeah.
Right, because that has, our documentation is not so great, but I can help with setting up the Prometheus operator with the Helm chart. It's for me it was
that is actually something that I think the like any help would be awesome. In fact, I'd love to be able to even maybe contribute to some of the documentation, because I like, for example, with the tutorials and things, like, I found that maybe some hints here or there would definitely have helped me maybe reduce the amount of time that I ended up spending just searching for it.
Right. Well, that is actually one of the main points why we want to move the Helm chart into the Mimir repo, because then we can have the chart and documentation in the same place. And actually, we want to start with a getting started guide in the documentation, exactly targeting you who want to start using it. And definitely the service monitoring can be like a section in that. Okay. Let me make a note of this, and we can, I think, collaborate once we have this move done of the chart, and we have a place in the documentation, specified by our doc team. I think we can start up. And we can collab on at least reviews, or if you are like, you would like to try out what we have in the future getting started guide, that would be very, very good. Like, great stuff.
Great. I'm on the. I joined the this Mimir channel on Slack as well. I'm hoping to maybe again. In fact, I had actually reached out with a question earlier, I think a couple of days back, and someone did respond. So again, thanks for being active on that as well.
Okay. Cool. I'll look for your name on the community Slack. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. I think just to echo what Chris said, thank you for the feedback. The documentation could be better, and like even myself, like working here, it's been tricky to set up those dashboards. So, 100%, that's something we want to get better at. So, cool. And I'd also, like to echo that, like the community Slack, I think is a great place to ask these kind of questions. Like this is a great place too, but like for the ongoing thing, like as we're figuring this out and as you're, like kind of iterating on it, we try to have people looking in the Slack and helping out as much as we can. So definitely feel free to post those questions in there. Cool. Anybody else want to add something or ask a question? All right. This is the first one of these community calls I've been to. What do we do? Do we hang out full time, or do we enjoy?
Yeah, if the discussion's done, we wave goodbye and
go
on about our business.
Cool. All right. If there's nothing else, I guess that's it for today. Appreciate everybody joining.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.